Claressa Shields is the most accomplished fighter of her generation. And by the end of this video, that resume is going to read less like armor and more like a list of everything she stood to lose. And before we go any further, I hope all of you are doing well, because for the people who spent the entire week insisting there is nothing to see here, I hope the denial is comfortable because we are about to pull it apart thread by thread. Now, you know what to do before we get into it. Leave a like, and really leave all of the likes because every single one makes this story harder to bury. And if you are new here, subscribe because this channel exists for one reason. Asking the questions that people with something to lose are praying nobody asks out loud. Quick housekeeping because on this one it genuinely matters. Everything discussed today is alleged unless stated otherwise. I was not in that locker room. I was not in that ring. But the footage is public, the timeline is public, and the contradictions are painfully public. So let's get into it. So let's set the table for anyone just catching up. The most recent outing for Claressa Shields was the fight against Kay Scott, and on paper it looked like another night at the office. Another win. Another stat for the resume. Another chance for Claressa Shields to inform the planet, once again, that she is the greatest to ever lace them up. The scorecards were never the story. The performance was never the story. The story started the second the final bell rang, because that is the moment the gloves were supposed to come off and they didn't. Now, to understand why people are suspicious, you have to understand the baseline. And the baseline is loud. Go back to 2016, the professional debut against Franchon Cruz. Final bell, decision read, gloves off. Immediately. No ceremony, no delay, no mystery. That is what fighters do. The fight ends, the hands come free, everybody breathes. March 2017, same scene. June 2017, same scene. August 2017, January 2018, June 2018. Same scene every single time. Fight after fight, year after year. The woman fought, the woman won, the woman unwrapped, the woman went home. It was clockwork. It was consistent. It was normal. And I need you to hold on to that word, normal, because what happened after the Kay Scott fight was the exact opposite of normal. This time the bell rang, the arm of Claressa Shields got raised, and the gloves stayed on. Not for a minute. Not for a quick interview. They stayed on through the celebration. They stayed on through the walk off the stage. They stayed on all the way to the press conference, where every other person at that table was relaxed, comfortable, hands-free, and there sat Claressa Shields with both fists still swallowed up in leather and lace like round 11 was about to start. People were looking at her sideways, and honestly, who could blame them? And then came the moment that has the whole internet in a death grip. There was a little kid trying to get her some water. A child. And because Claressa Shields would not take those gloves off, that baby had to hold the bottle up to her mouth and tilt it for her like she was the one being babysat. She could not free one hand to take a drink. One hand. In what universe does a fighter with nothing to hide sit at a press table, long after the fight is over, and refuse to unlace to take a sip of water? Somebody explain the logistics of that to me. Take your time. Now here's where it goes from strange to suspicious. Claressa Shields sat at that table, gloves on, for almost the entire press conference. Only near the very end, after the entire room had started staring at her like she had lost her mind, did the gloves finally come off. And when they did, people noticed something else. Bumps. All over. Now, I'm not a doctor and I'm not diagnosing anybody through a screen. But the internet gave the new look a nickname inside of an hour, and it was not flattering. The questions were stacking up faster than the answers, and Claressa Shields was literally running out of places to hide her hands. But wait, because it gets worse. After the press conference, she made her way back to the locker room, and that is where Claressa Shields opened her mouth and made everything 100 times worse for Claressa Shields. When people started asking why the gloves stayed on so long, she didn't laugh it off. She didn't shrug. She offered an explanation that sent the rumor mill into overdrive. She said her finger was injured. Okay, fine. Fighters get hurt. But then she went further, and this is the part that has her getting dragged up and down every timeline in existence. She said the injury happened days before the fight. Days before the fight. Now let me tell you why that explanation detonated in her face. Because anybody who follows Claressa Shields knows one thing about her. The woman talks. She talks about everything. Every belt, every hater, every slight, every stub toe ends up on a live stream, in an interview, in a post with 3 captions and a hashtag. That is the brand. That is the whole thing. If somebody looks at her wrong in a grocery store, we hear about it by dinner. So you are telling me that days before the biggest night on her calendar, this woman suffered a finger injury serious enough that she couldn't free one hand to drink water, and she never mentioned it? Not one post, not one story, not one line in one interview during the entire promotional run. Word going around is that right before she walked to that ring, there was nothing wrong with that finger at all. Nothing. The first time the world heard about this mystery finger was after the gloves had stayed on for a suspicious amount of time, after her opponent walked out with a forehead that looked like it filed its own police report, and after people had already started pointing at her hands and asking what was inside them. Convenient. Some would say suspiciously convenient. And here's the question everybody is asking now. When did the finger actually get hurt? Did it happen in camp, like she says? Or did it happen during the fight because there was something hard, something dense, something that does not belong inside a boxing glove, tucked in there with it? Because punching another human being with extra cargo in your fist will tear your own finger up too. That is the theory the internet is running with. I am just the messenger. Now let's talk about Kay Scott for a second, because her forehead is Exhibit A in this entire saga. Go back and look at the opponents from all those earlier fights we just walked through. The 2016 fight, the 2017 fights, the 2018 fights. Look at those women afterward. Some redness, some bruising, standard fight stuff, the kind of marks regular leather doing regular work leaves behind. Not one of them, not a single one, walked out of that ring with a knot on her head. Kay Scott? Word going around is that the lump started forming almost as soon as the fight did. Early rounds. Early. And by the end of the night, that woman had a bump on her forehead so big it looked like she had sprouted a whole second forehead. People compared it to a cartoon, and honestly, the cartoons would have called it unrealistic. So the question echoing through every comment section, every group chat, every boxing forum on the planet is the same one, and it is a question Claressa Shields has not answered. What kind of punch, from what kind of glove, leaves that kind of mark that fast? Regular padding doesn't do that. Regular padding spreads impact. Something rigid, something dense, something that is not supposed to be in there that does that. Allegedly. All of it allegedly. But you can hear why the whispers keep getting louder. And now we get to the motive because every scandal needs one, and this one has been marinating for years. For as long as Claressa Shields has called herself the greatest of all time, the critics have had one knock on Claressa Shields, and it has been chewing at her like rust on a fence. They say she can't knock anybody out. She wins on points. She wins on skill. She wins on heart. But the highlight reel, lights out, somebody hit the canvas knockout? The internet has been telling her for years that she doesn't have it, that the GWAT without knockouts is just a goat with great stamina. And you know that has been burning her alive because this is a woman who measures herself against Mike Tyson. She talks like Tyson. She carries herself like Tyson. She wants the respect Tyson got. But Mike Tyson put people to sleep. So picture the pressure cooker she was sitting in before this fight. Every headline, every podcast, every comment telling her the same thing. Put somebody down, prove it, shut them up. And then this fight happens, and suddenly her opponent is wearing a kind of damage none of the previous opponents ever wore. And suddenly the gloves won't come off. And suddenly there's an injury nobody knew existed. Look, I'm not connecting the dots for you. I'm just showing you where the dots are. Connect them yourself in the comments. And let me be fair for a moment because I always try to be fair. During the fight, a lot of us watching thought Claressa Shields was actually taking it easy on Kay Scott at points. Carrying her, being nice, letting her survive. But if what's being said is true, then we all read that fight wrong. She wasn't being nice. She was trying to put that woman out, and Kay Scott simply refused to go. That woman grabbed the ropes, leaned, scrambled, survived, and said with her whole chest, "You are not getting me on this canvas tonight." And she didn't. Credit where it's due, Kay Scott stayed on her feet. But even that is being questioned now because people are asking how anyone stayed upright at all if there was extra cargo in those gloves. And before anybody says this could never happen in modern boxing, stop. Because boxing has been here before, and the scars are permanent. Go ask anybody who knows the sport about Luis Resto and Billy Collins Jr. back in 1983. A trainer named Panama Lewis pulled padding out of Resto's gloves before that fight, and Billy Collins Jr. took a beating so severe his eyes were destroyed. His career ended that night, and his life spiraled until it was gone. People went to actual prison over that. Real prison. Or ask about Antonio Margarito in 2009, caught with a hardened, plaster-like substance in his hand wraps right before he was supposed to fight Shane Mosley. Caught only because somebody in that locker room had the courage to speak up and force a rewrap. License revoked. Legacy never recovered. So when people wave this off as impossible, they are ignoring history. This sport has seen tampered gloves more than once, and it has seen lives permanently altered by them. That is exactly why the boxing world doesn't laugh these whispers off. It leans in, because everybody who loves this sport knows what it looks like when it's real. And let's talk about the silence for a second, because the silence is loud. Where is the camp? Where is the fiery, gloves on defense? Normally when the internet comes for Claressa Shields is live within the hour, camera on, volume up, ready to fight the entire timeline at once. And Papoose, the man who has been front and center beside her, walking her into arenas, swinging at everybody from bloggers to 50 Cent on her behalf, Papoose has never met a Claressa controversy he didn't want to swing at. So where is that energy now? Where is the statement? Where is the receipts post with a medical record dated before the fight, an x-ray, a doctor's note? Anything? One piece of paper could shut this entire thing down tomorrow morning. One commission disclosure form. One trainer on camera saying, yes, the finger was hurt in camp, here is the proof. That evidence ends this conversation instantly. And yet here we are, still waiting. And every day that passes without it, the whisper gets a little louder. And a little louder. And a little louder. And a quick piece of free advice for the camp, since they are clearly watching. If the injury is real, show the paperwork. Not a live stream, not a rant, not a podcast appearance where everybody yells over each other for 2 hours. Paperwork. Dated, stamped, boring paperwork. That is the only language that ends a story like this. And the fact that it hasn't appeared yet is exactly why the story keeps breathing. Now, does any of that prove the accusation? No. And I want to be very clear about that. Nothing here is proven. An investigation, if one even opens, would be brutally difficult. Think about it. If something was in those gloves, it is long gone by now. The wraps are unwrapped, the gloves are stored or discarded, and whatever evidence existed walked out of that arena days ago. The only real trail left is the footage. Investigators, if investigators ever get involved, could go back to the locker room video from before the fight. They could watch the hands being wrapped. They could watch her demeanor. They could check whether that so-called finger injury existed anywhere on camera before she ever stepped through the ropes. Because if the finger was fine before the fight and broken after it, that tells one story. And if it was genuinely hurt days earlier, there should be a paper trail. Medical checks. Commission disclosures. Commissions do not play about pre-fight injuries. You are supposed to disclose them. Did she? That is a question somebody official needs to ask. And that's the part that makes this whole thing so heartbreaking for the sport, if it's true. Because Claressa Shields didn't need any of this. Claressa Shields has belts stacked to the ceiling. Olympic gold. Undisputed in multiple divisions. A resume most fighters, male or female, would trade their souls for. If you have won all of that, why would you ever risk it over internet comments about knockouts? Why let the trolls press you into the kind of decision that could erase your entire legacy in one night? That's what has people confused and furious at the same time. There was no reason for it. You go in, you do your best, you win how you win, and you let the critics argue with the scorecards. You don't reach for shortcuts. Not at that level. Not with that much to lose. And while we're on character, let's talk about the moment right after the final bell, because in hindsight it hits different. Remember how Claressa Shields got all up in Kay Scott's space after the fight? Smiling, laughing, draping the belts, telling her everything was going to work out, telling her she could still go on and do great things? At the time, it looked like sportsmanship. Warm, classy even. But now people are watching that footage back with a completely different set of eyes. Because if you knew that you might have had something illegal strapped to your fists while you were swinging on that woman, and then you turned around and smiled in her face and played big sister for the cameras, that is not sportsmanship. That is theater. That is the lowest of the low. And people are saying this isn't even the first time we've seen that kind of performance. They are pointing straight at the whole Remy Ma situation. The playing friendly, the playing cool, the Happy New Year routine, all while allegedly circling somebody else's man the entire time. Warmth to your face, calculation behind it. And if that pattern runs from the personal life into the ring, into the gloves, into the actual integrity of the sport, then Lord have mercy. That is a legacy fire. That is every alarm in the building going off at once. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a warehouse of questions and a shoebox of answers. Did Claressa Shields load those gloves? Did Claressa Shields even have a reason to? And if Claressa Shields is innocent, why does the timeline look like this? I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't wrap those hands. Everything is alleged. But here is what we know for a fact, and facts matter. Fact 1. 4 years, across fight after fight, her gloves came off immediately after every single bout, without exception. Fact 2. This time they didn't. They stayed on through the celebration, through the walk, through nearly an entire press conference, long past any reasonable explanation. Fact 3. Her opponent suffered visible, unusual damage early in the fight, the kind none of her previous opponents ever showed. Fact 4. A finger injury was claimed only after people started asking questions, an injury never once mentioned during days of promotion and press, from a woman who mentions everything. And fact 5. The motive was sitting in plain sight, in every comment section, in every headline, telling her she wasn't a real knockout artist. Put those 5 facts on a table together, and even if none of them proves anything alone, the picture they paint is exactly why the whispers keep getting louder. Now let me play devil's advocate one more time, because somebody has to. Is it possible this is all one giant coincidence? Sure. Is it possible she really did hurt her finger in camp, kept it quiet for strategic reasons because you don't tell your opponent you're wounded, and kept the gloves on because unlacing over a busted finger is agony? Yes. That is a real possibility, and I would be doing you dirty if I didn't say it out loud. Fighters hide injuries all the time. Commissions get told, opponents don't, and hands get babied after wars. That happens in boxing every single month. So no, this is not an open and shut case. But even giving her every benefit of every doubt, the optics are terrible. The timing is terrible. The knot on that woman's forehead was terrible. And when you are as loud, as proud, and as self-declared great as Claressa Shields, you do not get the luxury of bad optics. The same mouth that claimed the crown invites the scrutiny that comes with it. That's the deal. That's always been the deal. And here's the final twist in all of this. The thing that should keep every boxing fan up tonight. Even if an investigation opens tomorrow, and word is people are absolutely pushing for one, what does it actually find? The gloves are gone. The moment has passed. The only witnesses who know the truth are the people who wrapped those hands, and they are not talking. So this whole thing may live forever in the gray. No conviction, no clearance, just a permanent asterisk floating over one of the greatest resumes women's boxing has ever seen. And honestly, in the court of public opinion, that asterisk might be worse than any official punishment because official punishments end. Suspicion doesn't. Suspicion follows you to every ring, every press conference, every celebration for the rest of your career. Every time Claressa Shields wins from now on, somebody in that crowd is going to be staring at her hands. That's the real punishment. And it may have already started. So now I'm turning it over to you because this one is too big for one voice. Do you think it was just a coincidence that the gloves stayed on all that time? Do you think a woman who broadcasts every detail of her life just happened to forget a painful finger injury until after the fight? Do you think Kay Scott's forehead tells the real story? Or do you think the internet is doing what the internet does, building a scandal out of smoke? And the biggest question of all, if you had the legacy of Claressa Shields in your hands, would you ever risk it all chasing a knockout for the internet? Get in the comments right now and let me know where you stand, because I read every single one. Team coincidence or team loaded gloves? Pick a side and defend it. And listen, if you made it to this point in the video, you're amazing, so leave a like on the way out. Share this with somebody who watched that fight and felt something was off, and subscribe with the bell all the way on because this story is not over. Not even close. There is more footage being dissected as we speak, more voices coming forward, and if even one new detail drops, a commission statement, locker room tape, anything, I will be right back here with an update before the dust settles. And if you think this situation was wild, wait until you hear what's quietly unfolding around another champion's camp right now. That video is coming, and you do not want to miss it. So check out the suggested videos, pick whichever one you want on your end screen right now, and I will see you there. Stay smart, stay safe, and keep your eyes on those gloves. Peace.